Hey there, rulers! Welcome back after a long week of trying to play Force of Will to the Teacher's Lounge, your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast featuring myself, Jeremy Franklin, up in the upper left corner this time, switching it up. And I am joined, as always, by Ryan Miles.
It doesn't. Hold on. I can't. Hold on.
He's trying to get the glare.
There we go.
Brandon Bremont.
Hey.
And Derek Muguineza.
What's up?
How is it going, everybody?
Oh, staying alive.
Staying alive.
Staying alive.
Bright and sunny.
I'm gonna get demonetized. Don't do it.
Okay.
Copyrighted for sure.
Oh, no.
Anyway, we did
I
want to
told you
say
guys about my favorite beer. It's this Mexican beer. It's really great, honestly. I should just say the name of it and get everyone.
So, now that we're digging into that stuff, as always, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. If you like what we do here and you want to consider supporting us on the channel, go ahead and click that join button right below the video. It is the easiest way to support us. It gets you access to all kinds of cool perks, including like being part of the chat, which the chat tonight is back to being members only. And so we like having that interaction with you, and it's an easy way for you to support us. Also, I do want to give a quick shout out that the Alternate Souls Kickstarter is over 50% funded at this point. Yes, we have a Rhea emote that has been unlocked, Derek. So the more members we get, the more emotes we get. So we usually often leave the voting on the emotes up to the members. So consider joining that. I think we need about 5 more members to be able to unlock the next emote. So consider joining. The other thing is, like I said, Alternate Souls Kickstarter is down below. There's a link in the description. They are 50% funded and just under, they have 10 days left in the Kickstarter to get the other 50%. So if you consider checking the interview we did last week on the lounge and want to consider joining in on that project, go ahead and click the link down below to do that. Now, with all that shilling out of the way, let's jump into this week in Force of Will, which was Alice Origins 3 spoilers have started. Not Ghost in the Shell spoilers, which comes out in a week and a half, but I liken that that's probably due to the fact that the Ghost in the Shell company might be holding back them on doing those. Like,
Probably.
hey, we're about to put out a series, don't put out cards that might spoil something from the series, please. So yeah, we're jumping right into Alice Origins 3. And we were correct on the color combinations, confirmed, of blue, red, white, green, and black, green with Rezard, Arla, and Reflect Refrain. Hence the tonight's name, reflecting on new spoilers and refraining from despair. That's the
name. That's what we did.
That's what our name of the episode tonight is.
Not be here tonight.
Sorry.
Why didn't we get to say the title name?
Oh, goodness me.
I'll give you guys a choice next time. So, what I want to do specifically is I want to spend a lot of our time talking about these 3 new rulers because they are very different than anything we've seen so far in Alice Origins in terms of ruler design. And I'd like to kind of talk about what our thoughts are on the design, what potential impact we think they might see on the design, as well as some of the support we've kind of seen a little bit. And specifically, I'd also like to talk about what reprints we would like to see to support these new rulers. So, without that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right in. Do you guys want to start with Rezard, Arla, or Reflect Refrain?
We have the most reflect cards, right?
Yeah, we have the most stuff
do.
on Reflect. Yeah.
I'm looking at all of them now.
Okay, I will go ahead and bring Reflect up on the screen. So, we got Reflect right here in the middle. So Reflect on the front side is our red-blue. It's a little boy on the front and I think a little girl on the back. So bringing back the little girl race. It's been a while since we've had one of those.
It's been a while.
Has Stranger 10 as always, energized red or blue. Also says as you begin the first turn of the game, you may invert this card, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. Reflect is you gain passion on the front and only has 3 modes for the Regalia. Once again, if you get their Regalia, you get to pick 2. But it's produce red for any color, for anything. Deal 600 damage to target player or J Resonator, or destroy target Resonator. Now, before we go into Refrain side...
Damaged Resonator.
Any damaged Resonator, yeah. Destroy something that's damaged. So like Demon Flame. So like old Demon Flame, but on a a body or on the ruler. So before we go into the J ruler side, give me your thoughts on this new take. We've never seen Reflect and Refrain be red and blue before. So kind of give me your thoughts on this.
So interestingly, the Regalia itself can just tap for mana. So when you play it, if you produce the red, it's kind of like it's a free Regalia, which is kind of cool, like as far as mage arts and stuff are concerned. And it nets you a mana if you're tapping it for the mage arts mode. So like if you have a 3-mana mage art, you can play it on 2 stones with this, which is kind of cool if that acceleration ends up mattering. Otherwise, the 600 damage to target player or J Resonator is quite a bit. We saw Melgus can nug things in the face. I'm not sure if this one's going to go the same aggro route, but if it does, this one counts fire regalias. So like you could just play the like, all right, heart burn you, you're dead kind of plan if that ends up working out. Although I'm guessing Melgus is probably going to end up better at that. And the destroy target damage resonators actually doesn't matter as much as you might think. Like that doesn't actually come up that often unless
I agree.
This deck happens to have some random support for it, or like we or something. But like in general, that doesn't really matter. It's I'm really looking at the first 2, but those first 2 are really good. The fact that the 600 can go to face is like is a bigger game than it might look.
Yeah, for sure. I've already seen people just in talking about this saying like, look, we technically have 3 different fire regalia right now. We have Levitin, not that you're going to use it with this ruler, which we'll talk about in a second. Caduceus, and then the interesting application is probably Caduceus, and then obviously Change of Heart, specifically because Caduceus would then. It says your J ruler gains drain, doesn't it? It doesn't say. Yeah, so never mind. Caduceus doesn't matter as much as that.
Well, sure, but Caduceus does tap for mage arts, right?
Sure, yeah. I was saying it more of the sense of like Reflect could then start pinging stuff for 6 and draining you life, which it doesn't.
Oh, and then gaining 6. Yeah, that'd be
that
kind of
that would be cute, but it doesn't because it's a ruler. So people have been talking about playing like 4 Caduceus, 4 Change Heart, and like you still produce will
and
when
4
you play
Genki
Caduceus. To just be like play the burn.
Nobody's gonna do that.
Like play your burn face and
I'm gonna do it. Get out of here.
I'm not gonna put any signature on this that says this is better than Melgus, but I'm thinking about plays that are like Caduceus burn you, do the lightning helix, play Change of Heart, tap for like 5 for mage arts plus the trigger off of Reflect, get like some ridiculous burn mage art if that exists.
Right.
And that starts to go pretty darn fast, especially since the red can be used for anything and Change of Heart itself can then tap for anything. Oh, actually, so one sequence that actually does work is on 2, tap 2, play Change of Heart, produce red, tap Change of Heart for
blue.
The red itself. Oh, hold on, this doesn't work.
You can play multiple Change the Heart.
Yeah, you can play multiple Change Heart.
Yeah, but you'd have to if you'd be produced. The other thing is if you produce, and we'll look at Change of the Heart here as we talk about that. I think what you're talking about is why it doesn't work is because you have to invert to Refrain in part of this sequencing that you're talking about. But we'll talk about that in a second. Because Refrain. Yeah. Let's jump over to there. Refrain. Oh, that's the spell. All the artwork for these 2 is the 2 of them mashed together. So Refrain is also a ruler. So this is our first ever true double-sided ruler. Reflect, the old OG Reflect Refrain was essentially a double-sided ruler, but it technically was still a J ruler, which is why we thought Black Moonbeam would fix it, but it didn't. It just made it worse. But this is actually a double-sided ruler in the sense of on the front side, on this side, you gain calmness, and whenever the regalia, it's specifically on this side, it says water. It triggers on this side. You can produce blue, rest target resonator, or is it rest target? No, it's rest target entity, or draw a card on this side. So this is the more like defensive side, whereas Reflect is the more aggressive side, and then kind of bounces back and forth in terms of what they produce. So first off, thoughts on the fact that we have a double-sided ruler finally. That's pretty cool.
It's
I think
definitely
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I think it's just a cool design, the idea of these 2 characters. Like, it was a really... I know that when people first saw the image of Reflect Refrain, everyone was immediately, like, freaking the heck out because of what it was been in the past. But I think that this idea of making them a double-sided ruler is very good thematically to like what we know of these characters in the past, and also a big far step away from what they've been in the past that was so like scary. Like it's still thematically.
I think
go ahead.
I think it's pretty similar to the older Reflect Refrain because you have a bunch of really cool abilities that are useful in niche situations, and then you have draw a card, the one that really matters, and that's kind of what I'm looking at here. Like you got deal 600. Okay, cool. That's probably useful. I can kill like Dark Alices and stuff. It's like, oh, I can like rest entities. That's kind of neat. Oh, I can draw a card. Oh, this is broken. All right, cool. No.
I mean, and the other thing is too is you can start the game with Reflect or Refrain based on the face up. So I think that's kind of cool because you could also potentially see it based on your matchup, right? So if like if your opponent flips over, like obviously you're playing against a control deck. Oh, well, I'm gonna start on the side that lets me draw a card, so I naturally have like progression to start getting a little bit more advanced in you. Or if you're playing against a deck that's being particularly aggressive, so you need that spot removal and stuff like that, you can start on the Reflect side. So again, it's a different kind of application on that niche selection between the abilities at the front and back, but I think it's designed in a really cool and unique way.
Yeah, the 600 damage also matters a lot too because we saw like Melgus was kind of cool and it was killing Dark Alice when Dark Alice mattered, but now you've got stuff like Mariabella. Even if you kill Pricia's Regalia, her tokens are still like 6/6s, so that extra 100 damage kind of matters a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Wrestling an Entity has a lot of really cool applications, and like you're always choosing two of these, and sometimes you're just not going to need that extra mana, especially if this does end up being like a control deck. Like for example, Valentina's Regalia is quick cast and it is also blue-black and is also Mage Arts, so it's going to fall in the same kind of slot that Change the Heart does. So resting entities on your opponent's turn is going to be kind of cool. I'm really interested to see. One thing that was I think we kind of glossed over was that Change the Heart doesn't make mana for strangers, and there is no stranger draw on this ruler. So for all the other Excalibur or Regalia rulers we've seen, there's been stranger generation. So it's interesting that like this seems to have a very similar like trifecta of the other three abilities, but like even with no judge for 0, no stranger, it's actually doing more than everything else while forgoing those other aspects.
Yeah, and I think that's the pretty cool part of it too, is like I think that's a good trade-off. Like we almost kind of got a ruler that has more versatility and more effects to be able to make use of on the front side. But the trade-off is we have to get to our strangers from other directions. Like we have to get to our strangers other ways and play for our strangers other ways.
I think we're gonna go on to see Scheherazade and the Scheherazade spell, and I think we'll talk about how I think this ruler's stranger deck might end up looking a bit different than other stranger decks.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For sure.
You're turboing them in a bit of a different way.
So I'm gonna go bounce us over to Change the Heart because we've talked about it a couple times. So Change the Heart obviously is the Regalia. First off, this artwork is really really cool. I think it's a really cool nod to how Change the World looked in terms of like the breaking of the color scheme. So like that is a cool throwback to me. This is gonna look dope full art. So like I'm excited for that. So it says produce will in 2 combinations of red or blue. Spend this will only to play Mage Arts. So it is the most exclusive double will production that we've had on any Regalia so far. If you want to produce 2, you can only use it for this. And then the other part is it can choose to produce 1, which can be used for anything. You can produce 1 red or 1 blue. And then specifically for Reflect Refrain, you can invert them when only producing 1. So it does say you may. So to flash back to the previous conversation, you could technically play Change the Heart into Change the Heart without having to invert your ruler. That is something to note here, because it says you may invert your ruler, but Change the Heart essentially allows you to instant speed, do a little bit less will production in exchange for being able to reflect refrain back and forth, which I think is really cool from a design point of what they're wanting reflect refrain to be. Even back in the old days of reflect, like once you flipped into refrain, there is this idea of like instant speed flipping back to when you needed to get the other effects off and stuff like that. So we're seeing that kind of same concept play out in a really unique way, and it does allow you to go back and forth because they don't have judgment. So because they're
I have to think that this doesn't matter at all, but that is a will ability, so you could flip your ruler at basically like there's nothing your opponent can do about it because that is all tied into 1 will ability, so it doesn't use the Q at all, which is like because it's a ruler and a ruler. Like if it was a ruler J ruler, that would be pretty huge, but because it's a ruler and a ruler side, I can't think of any implications where that matters, but it is something to kind of be aware of.
Yeah, I think it means that you have to be constantly like mindful of
What's
like
gonna matter
what's
is if you have
yeah.
a card that's like, as long as you have passion, then your this resonator has +3/+3, and as long as you have calmness, then it has flying or something like that. You know, if we have that, then it'll be important to note that you can switch those without using the chase.
That is true.
Yeah, and I think that's probably in my thought. That's probably going to be a lot of what Reflector Refrain is kind of designed to do. Is this kind of like spell slinging kind of deck where like
combat tricks.
It's a lot of either combat tricks or like the strangers that they might be, or like ways to bring out strangers in unique ways. But the strangers have like different effects based on passion or calmness. That kind of stuff. So to me, that's completely different than anything we've seen so far this cluster, and I'm really excited to play around with it. Because you could also, like, I could see based on different support, you could build a deck that's probably 100% Refrain. You could probably build a deck that's 100% Reflect, and you could probably build a deck that's designed to flip flop. So like, to me, that'll be cool to see.
Phenomenally less interesting though than like a control deck that wants to start on Refrain and then like draw a bunch of cards off of the draw mode, and then later in the game switch to Reflect and like burn you out for the last little bit.
Are you saying it's less interesting?
It's more interesting to do what he's saying.
I think it's more interesting to have a deck that cares about both.
Oh, sure. I agree. I would agree with you that I think the best way to play it will be to play, like you're saying, like a control deck that starts on Refrain and then uses Reflect as kind of like a backup win con, kind of in the similar ways that like OG Vlad used to do. Like OG Vlad would play this control deck and would still try to kill you, but then by the end of the game, eventually Vlad was like, oh, I'm Vlad, so I can just drain you and we're done. So it's kind of cool to see that kind of concept coming back. Now we do want to go ahead and go into the support cards. We've seen 3 particularly, one of which is going to be our pre-release promo. And for those of you who haven't heard, the company has officially announced that pre-release is going to be not happening technically. It's going to be pushed back to be releasing the same day as like the set, and there hasn't been a delay in the set release, but stores have now been given permission to sell pre-release kits as they see fit, whether that be to run their own events, to sell kits wholesale, to sell the promo, to use the promos for prizing, to use the playmats for additional stuff as like incentive for people to buy product, whatever. And I know that we've had players in the past who have had their stores sell them pre-release kits, but it's always kind of been a little bit under the table. So this is kind of nice to see the company being like, look, we got product in your hands, use it as you need to, like get the product in the player's hands, make the money that you need to make sure you're moving forward. I think it's pretty cool. Like even on the back end, that's just cool, like to see the company giving that kind of incentive and support to stores. But we have Scheherazade, who is a new Wanderer. So 2-drop 7/7, super rare, 1 red, 1 blue. Has barrier from chance, just naturally. And it says, while you control this card, you have passion and calmness. So she kind of like, almost like a 3-drop Athenia lets you harvest and corrupt. Scheherazade gives you both of the symbol skills for that. And then on enter, she can get a counter on her, and I'm not sure exactly what it's called because it's hard to see. A story counter?
I think it's story counter, yeah.
She can get a story counter, and then if you awaken her, she gets 5 story counters. And then you can spend a story counter to look at a random card from your stranger deck, and then pay its cost to put it on the chase. So the effect is similar to kind of OG like Sherry 2 in the sense of like turning your stranger deck into this kind of like instant speed, ignoring the timing kind of concept, but you still have to pay the cost and it's still random. Like you still have to burn a counter and you might not get what you want. And then in order to awaken her, you have to rest a regalia that you control. So not produce will with it. You actually have to rest of regalia and like sacrifice the will in exchange for using the awakening to get the 5 counters.
Yeah, so this card's got a lot going on. If you put the 5 counters on it late enough into the game, that becomes draw 5, and like sometimes a bit better than that because what you're drawing is strangers, which tend to be better than regular cards. Of course, it's not like actually draw 5 because you have to have the mana for them when you play it, so you can't just like slam this on 2 and then draw 5 cards. Like that would be ridiculous. But if the game goes long enough, that tends to work. And so I think that this is going to want to be in a more controlling deck. Curiously, this card is sort of counter synergistic with another Scheherazade support card we're going to be seeing here in just a little bit, which just plays the top Stranger. And so that card is going to want really thick, really big cards to cheat. And this card would kind of prefer to have your Undying, the Wind one or whatever, the one drop, and like ones that you could just always be casting to like get those counters off for as fast as possible and just accrue a huge advantage. So that's going to be a little bit of tension in this deck, and we'll kind of see which side comes out on top. I'm sort of thinking it's going to be the spell. But this is a good card. I mean, there's certainly application here.
The barrier chance to me is very interesting with what you're talking about being like a tool for like late game control decks of like against in some matchups for a control deck because of the fact that it's a 7/7 body. There's gonna be there's gonna be times where a control deck is gonna play this on 2 Unawakens just to like have the counter on it, to have a 7/7 barrier body against like some potential more aggressive decks that might have like combat tricks or stuff like that. And then you burn the counter, and if you get a good stranger, then great. And if you didn't, then you probably killed something. So it's like, I think that's going to be a potential big implication for that card. All in all,
am I crazy?
Go ahead.
Or is this like one of the most overstated cards we've ever seen? Because I mean, like we've had Athenia, which is 3 mana, but it's really 0. We've had Kaguya, which is 3 mana, but it's really 2. And this is just like no gimmicks, no conditions. Just here's your 2 mana 7/7 with barrier chant. Full stop. Like that just seems like they finally said like, yeah, I guess we have to predict some broken stuff. It's like I guess like here's some power creep, you know, just like we've never seen. I don't think a 2 mana 7/7 before.
Not without downside.
No, downside. This has upside. Like
yeah,
what?
right. That was my first thought too in seeing this card. Like 2-drop 7/7 with barrier chant. Like that stat line with that side effect. It's just like, okay, this is just good.
I'm thinking back to like when we had, what was the original blue-red Soul, I think it was, and his little demon was like a 2 mana 5. It was like a 2 mana 5/5 that lit itself on fire as soon as it hit the board, and like your entire like put sleeves in your deck and get out of the way because the card was so bad that it was just like this is really interesting that they're like just saying, okay,
I mean,
cards
blue
are
red
good now.
Answer a chat question really quick. Someone in chat just asked what happens if I can't play for the stranger. You look at it, you nod solemnly, and then you put it back.
Right, which is one of those situations. This is one of those situations where, like I'm saying, based on the matchup, just because it's a 2-drop 7/7 with upside, sometimes based on the matchup, you're just going to play a 2-drop 7/7 and then maybe wheel into a good stranger later. Like maybe
this is the first time where it's functionally different to play your stranger deck like true random versus just pulling off the top every time, because in this time it says look at a random stranger. So if you look at the top, you don't just put it back on top. Like you have to shuffle your stranger deck again. If you were doing like the roll d10 thing, then you're completely fine like as it was before. But like I've always just played, okay, my stranger deck, okay, it's random, and now there's a random one on top, and whenever I need a random stranger, I'll just pull it off the top. But this one you have to actually keep it consistently randomized. Right. So I think it's the first time it's actually mattered. So if you've been playing correctly this whole time, look at you.
Yay!
How bad does it feel when you're playing the Kaguya deck against a Scheherazade deck? They play their spell. They have 1 blue open and this with a counter on it. You put your Kaguya at the counter. They remove the counter from their Scheherazade, shuffle their stranger deck, and then pull the blue wizard and cast it.
The best part is that they whiff, and then they just do it again, and then they just do it again. They just go like 4 times until they hit it, and it's like
we got there.
Like, reasonably, like do I feel comfortable playing a Kaguya when you've just got 5 counters of 1 blue mana? Like, are you gonna miss 5 times? Like, how many counters do I expect you to burn? Is it even worth it if I just know my Kaguya is gonna get canceled?
Yeah, it's very interesting to me.
I was talking about before, where am I going to be playing the blue wizard in a deck that probably would much rather be playing the spell that cheats a stranger? Like, probably not.
So the thing is, like, from what we've seen so far, like, personally, I really like the one that cheats in a stranger. But with this card, there's the other card that, like, costs 5, but only costs 1 if you control Scheherazade. And that's got some cool modes on it. So, like, there is merit to running this card for that card. Because then, like, on turn, you can play that card on, like, turn 2. You go, like if you have Energize, you go play the Regalia, produce red mana, Energize for blue mana, play this card, and now I use my Regalia to pay 1 to play the 5-drop.
And get both the modes. Right.
I don't even know what you do. Like draw a card.
We'll talk about that.
It matters.
We'll talk about it here in a second.
I feel like this card can actually go in 2 different directions. You know, there's the the direction in which Brandon had brought up earlier, where you have like, you know, your control deck and you're trying to play the 3-drop spell to get those bigger.
Move us along.
Yeah, because we have 2 Arla cards to talk about too.
Yeah, we gotta get started.
The stream is completely stopped for me. I don't know if that.
Try refreshing it right now. It should be back.
I just did.
What if we just go until we finish?
Oh, it's back.
Yeah,
We're good.
it should be back. Cool. Okay, so sorry for that little lag spike, everybody. Thankfully, YouTube's new setup lets me continue to restream things, which is great. So we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next spell, which is we've already talked about it quite a bit, honestly, which is the Cheating In a Stranger spell. It's a mage art, 1 blue, 1 red. It's the Scheherazade's Heroic Epic. So we're using that Heroic Epic, bringing it back. Choose a card from your Stranger deck at random and put it into the field. I think this is pretty cool for the reasons we've already kind of talked about. It takes the deck kind of in a different direction, whereas like kind of just cheating in these big old strangers rather than having to worry about getting the regalia to get them to your hand to be able to recast them. And really clicks into that again, that idea of Scheherazade, like Reflect Refrain is interacting with the stranger deck in a very different way than every other ruler we've seen so far. In terms of like not really bringing them to hand, you're bringing them into the field from other ways. You're trying to cheat them in. You're trying to look at them differently. You're casting them at weird timings, like that kind of thing. But I do
mention this is a mage art, right?
Yes, it is a mage art. So with change the world, technically, on the turn you get changed heart, you could cast this because you could produce.
You tap 2.
Yeah,
you tap it for 2.
So
and
turn
then you
on with
produce 1.
coin, turn 2 without. It's pretty good in my opinion.
You could potentially wheel it into something ridiculous. It is kind of
The 4,000 gold. Let's get there.
Yeah, let's get that 4K golden. Let's go, boys.
We get bigger strangers this set, but even with just the strangers we have right now, I mean, what if you just got the 40/40 or what, or even something simpler like the 3-mana 10/10 with flying that enters and draws 2? Like even that feels pretty ridiculous for turn 1 or 2. Like
for sure. There's definitely some strangers.
I feel
there's definitely some strangers that I would look at playing in this kind of deck that I wouldn't think about playing in any other ones.
Yeah, I think that's almost why they've kind of gone for this. You don't draw strangers and put them in your hand. You just play them from your deck. Like you're not going to have room in your hand the way this deck is going to draw cards. Honestly,
sure.
Like, this is actually too good. they thought ahead. Like I just have 10 cards in my hand. All these strangers are just sitting here. It's like, oh, what if we just never drew them and just played them? Like
there you go.
Yeah.
And then I did want to talk.
Really front runner for cutest art in the set. Like goodness gracious.
Oh yeah, it's adorable for sure. I also do want to bring up real quick. We have the spell Between Passion and Calmness. It's another mage art. If you have Passion, you pay 2 blue less. So just the red part, and if you play Calmness, you pay 2 red less. So just the blue part. The Passion mode, you get to choose one of its modes. Oh, this is so weird. So like, if you have Passion, it costs 2 red and 1, and you can remove target resonator from the game or give plus 600 attack to all your resonators this turn. If you have Calmness, so you're on Refrain side, you pay 2 blue and 1, and you can put target non-Magic Stone, non-J resonator entity on the bottom of its owner's deck. Hint, that means Regalia. Or draw a card. So if you have both, you get to pick a mode from both of those 2 sections, and it costs you 1.
Yeah, so I think this card is abysmal at 3 mana. Like neither of those modes are even close to worth it at 3.
Very good at 1 mana.
Yes, if you choose to draw a card and remove a resonator, I am so strained to come up with any world in which you're not removing a resonator, drawing a card. Like I literally think there's just 1 mana, remove a resonator, draw a card.
I think you're bottoming Regalia a lot of the time. Actually,
that too. I think the modes are remove a resonator for the first side, and then it's either draw a card or bottoming a Regalia.
So I mean, like the Priscia one, sure, but like other ones, they typically already got most of the value out of it. I guess the mana tapping is relevant.
Right, but I think what you're saying is, like, most of the time, the draw a card, bottoming removing a resonator, that's amazing. However, I think you're also going to get a lot of value out of
I can see those
removing a resonator.
Plus 6 to your board ever really matters.
I don't think so.
It's going to matter only when it matters. You know,
Right.
Like I'm not going to write that one off. I'm not going to say that's why I'm playing the card. But sometimes you're going to be like, I just have like this, I don't know, 1 drop like Red Parsival on the board, and I've also got insert other random one like an Acolyte.
Some days you're just going to win the game. You're just going to be like,
2000.
oh.
Like,
So like Force of Will is kind of a weird game in that like removal is not as good in this game as it is in other games because like we only play resonators with great enter the battlefield and like and like high power abilities. So like 1 mana remove a resonator and draw a card is good. If you come from other games, it's not as insane as it sounds, but it is certainly good. I'm not trying to say it's
for sure. So with that out of the way, we've hit all of the Reflect Refrain stuff. Do we want to talk about Rezard, who we've just seen Rezard and his backside, or do we want to talk about Arla and some of the Italian spoilers that came out today for Arla? A lot of the chat wants to talk about Arla.
I was going to say Arla because she also has 2 cards we need to talk about, and then we can kind of wrap it up at like 10 minutes left and say, okay, we have to talk about Rezard now, you know?
Yeah, sounds good. So
don't know anything about him. Done.
So Arla. Arla has Stranger 10 as always. Judgments for 1 white and 2 green. Energize for white and green. The modes are the Regalia is not bow. It's Wings of the Archangel. And it's specifically light regalia. So Arla is light regalia, not wind. And it says the modes are the usual ones of judgment for 0, get a stranger, but the stranger is different. It's actually you pick 2 strangers and remove them from the game. They don't go to your hand. They get RFG'd instead. And then its other modes are resonators. 2 resonators you control gain flying and +2/+2 until end of turn. Or draw a card for each resonator you control that has flying. So obviously Arla's very heavily focused on flying. And so, yeah, very interesting. Again, a very different take on what is it, like how does it interact with the Stranger deck. But I am going to jump real quick to the backside. Pardon for the low quality. This is just a screen grab from the preview information. Brandon left.
I'm still here.
He'll be back. We are a 7 kings on the back. We are a 10/10. We do not have flying. On enter, you may take the top card of your Magic Stone deck, put it into the field, so it ramps the stone into play recovered, unlike Valentina. And then choose a card from your Stranger deck and remove it from the game. So once again, doesn't get one into the field, but it gets you a ramped stone and gets a Stranger removed from the game. And then his God Art is 2 white and 2 green. Put any number of light or wind strangers that have different names from your removed from game area into the field. Then, from that moment until the end of the game, if you no longer control a stranger on your side of the field, you lose the game. So,
alrighty then.
And I've had some people being like, that's an automatic ability, you can cancel it. And I'm like, and then as soon as that sequence ends, it re-triggers because it will continue to see that you no longer control the stranger. Like, you can't get your way out of losing the game here. So very definitely a combo ruler.
You can chain to that trigger and kill them. That's fine.
Yeah, if you can somehow do it, yeah, for sure, absolutely.
If you like sacrifice a stranger to Ring of Destruction, I don't know if we even have something like that. Then yes, you can cancel your own trigger to then kill them, and then I don't even think that works actually.
I don't think that works
because you control both of the triggers, so you could stack them such that the loose was on.
If sacrificing the creature is paying the cost, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, that to me is very interesting. So it's very different. This deck is going to be utilizing the strangers to kind of flood the board all at once. Very definitely to me feels like a combo deck, which to be honest, Arla has been a combo deck in the past. So again, that throwback to his kind of thematic play style in the past.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool. Again, a very different stranger deck than anything we've seen coming into this point, right? Like it's going to be a completely different style of building.
So can I just say really quick, like, combo deck is cool, but the front side also says that the Regalia draws 2 cards as long as you control 2 resonators, because like you could just give 2 things flying.
Oh, sure.
Draw a flyer. So at a minimum, as long as you control 2 resonators, then the Regalia draws 2 cards.
Sure.
And if you control 2 resonators and X other resonators with flying, it's just like load your hand with cards, and I am in for it.
Yeah, for sure. He's a lot of fun.
it wants to be a swarm deck, right? It's like it wants you to play these really low to the ground guys, and I think it's Sword Art mana for Arla, correct?
Yes, it is Sword Art.
Yes.
So then you've got Machina, which is blue green, and then you've also got Sword Arts there. So then you get your token spammy machine stuff if you really want to. You can go twin robots on one and then draw 2 cards with your Regalia on 2, and that doesn't seem okay. It kind of seems terrible because you just have twin robots on the field. But I mean, like,
but then they have flying, right? But then they're flying.
Yeah, you hit your opponent
yeah, I
like
guess
in the air, which is like cool. Yeah.
Also taps 2 for angels, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
So like that also helps with this. Spam.
Yeah.
Especially since the very first set of Valhalla had like a small angels theme. And so there's a lot of just like random angels in that set, including a loot hoarder, which is actually like pretty decent itself.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So speaking of Wings of the Archangel, I apologize this is in Italian, but I have the translation here. First off, this art is gorgeous, and to me, seeing more of this art that's been in Arla's like traditional brushstroke style is really dope. That's sorry. So the Regalia is obviously has Mythic Trigger as everything else. No reminder text this time, which is kind of nice. Your J ruler gains flying, so this is where the flying comes from, and it has produce 2 will in any combination of white and or green. Use this to play sword arts, god arts, or angels. So once again, a Regalia that doesn't play for strangers is combined with a ruler that isn't bringing strangers to hand. So that makes sense to me. I am a little terrified for what angels might be coming into this package.
Speaking of packages.
Yeah, like, but like, you know, to me, again, it's a very different take. You know, you could definitely see something like Ryan is talking about, this kind of low to the ground, super aggressive. You could talk about this, just draw a bajillion value kind of card things like he's doing there. And you could talk about it as a combo deck where like your whole idea is just to get all 10 of your strangers RFG'd, and they're just like the most OP strangers you can think of. And then you flip and you god art and you just like, poof, you know, spam the field that way.
Is there any other way to RFG strangers from the stranger deck besides Arla's trigger?
There is. And the second spell, which we're going to get to here in a second.
Oh, okay.
And there will probably be more than said, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Probably.
So there's definitely ways to do it. And so we are going to go to that spell right now. Once again, it is in Italian, so I apologize. But I have the card's description here. It is the Awakening of the Winged Lord. So all of these like 2-drop spells, we've had like a bunch of Awakenings. We've had Determination of the Machine Lord. We have Awakening of the Winged Lord. So this is kind of like the lore is going into my lore brain. Like really this point in time is like when these guys are kind of becoming the 7 kings, which I think is really cool. It's kind of cool to see this like thematic spell attached to each of the rulers. But it's a chant, it's a sword art. It's got quick cast. It has multiple modes, and it always says choose 1. You can recover up to 2 J/resonators with flying. That's one of the 2 modes. Or look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put a non-chant card with total cost 2 or less into play, or choose a card at random from your stranger deck and remove it from play. You gain life equal to its attack.
That could potentially be an awful lot of life, but I think the mode that everyone's going to look at first here is recover 2 J resonators of flying, because that
I think that's the mode you're going to play it for, and then it's also kind of nice where you can just dig an extra 4 for your Regalia on turn 2 if you just don't have anything else.
I do want to address something real quick. I've been messaged by the judges, by one of the judges here. Apparently, I was incorrect that if you can somehow cancel Arla's lose the game trigger, it doesn't re-trigger.
Oh, that's cool.
So
that's kind of neat.
So if you do have a way to be able to cancel it, which I don't think there's anything currently in the game that can cancel a J ruler's automatic. Mm-hmm. Right? Blue Wizard cancels the automatic ability of a Resonator.
Yep.
We don't have anything right now that can, but if eventually we did have something that could, so like in Wanderer with like Lorite, or Lorite can't even cancel your own stuff.
Yeah.
So never mind.
There is one that cancels your own automatic abilities.
If there was ever a card that could cancel your own automatic abilities, then you could save yourself from losing the game and keep playing from there. However, in real time, we have the correction here. If you can, there is no way to do that right now. But if you
if you played it in Epic Stories with Kaguya,
with Kaguya, I was going to say Kaguya 3, also green white. So there you go.
Like makes it worse. You don't want to use the same color.
So that does make it worse. So so back to the spell here. Pulling up the artwork because Ryan, I have the text here.
I do have one comment because I am a filthy spike player. I am the only part of cards that I care about is the bottom half where the words are. This card is gorgeous. I never give single flying dicks about the art of a card, but this card looks so good. I've won it on a playmat. Like, it's just nice.
I'm so glad that they have like preserved their like Force of Will's like great art.
Yeah, for sure.
I used to say that was the best part about Force of Will, and they never faltered on that.
Yeah, it is amazing to see that it carries through. And again, it's very much that like brushstroke style that like has always been connected to Arla, which I think is just super cool. So I think this spell has a lot of implications for a lot of different takes. With you're talking about this idea of the low to the ground, like even talking about this concept of like the low to the ground super aggressive deck, like with what Ryan was talking about, the idea of like twin robots on 1, play Wings of Armala on 2, Wings of the Archangel on 2, give them both flying, draw 2 cards, swing in, use Archangel, recover them both, swing in again. Like it has applications. It has applications in that sense, or even in the form of even in the sense of like if you're playing an angel deck, right? So angels have kind of notoriously had really high defense. So the idea of like swinging in the air for the attack and then using this spell to be able to recover them so that you have a blocker wall, right?
And then block.
Like there's a lot of things that you can do implication-wise with that. It also speaks to what we're talking about before of like getting all your strangers removed from game, but it also has the upside of like you also gain life, like it's a life gaining spell. And sometimes combo decks need something to be able to stay alive in the game long enough to be able to pull off the combo. So like that's really cool there. The mode of like it's really weird to me that like the middle mode is the mode that's most like an old Arla spell.
Invigoration of the Winged Lord.
Invigoration of the Winged Lord in terms of like getting to cheat something into play, but Invigoration grabs something better than a 2-drop.
Well, in today's Force of Will, 2-drops are like old 4-drops.
But it also can grab non-resonators. So it could grab an addition, it could grab a regalia, it could grab something else. So like all 3 of these modes, based on how you build a deck, I actually think could have some serious implications, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, one thing that I've come to find over the course of just playing a lot more Stranger Regalia decks is like this just being a quick cast sword art is actually super good. Like all that shit talking I did about space time, like I've started kind of creeping space time into my list just because when I play my Regalia, sometimes I just want something to do with that mana before I untap. And it doesn't even matter if my space time is just like not getting a whole lot done. It's just like I just want to use this mana and I'll draw a card. It's kind of nice. Like this just like is actually really good for that. So when you do your like you're not getting a stranger and playing it. Like you don't inherently have anything to do with the mana when you play your Regalia like you do with a Leviathan or the other ones. You know what I mean? Because you're not drawing a stranger to immediately play with that mana. So this kind of card is just you get to play a 2-drop just from the top 4 cards of your deck when you play your Regalia, and you get to do it at quick cast speed. So you can just like throw in something complete, like whatever 2-drops we end up seeing, even that angel we were just talking about, that when it dies you draw a card, or when it enters the battlefield you draw a card. Like that's just like you're being efficient with your will, which is like one of the core tenets of what Force of Will is right now. So it's actually like I think a pretty decent card overall. When at first I was like, yeah, it's like resuscitating will twice, that's kind of gimmicky and I hate effects like that, but actually just using it on turn 2 is fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's a card that I can see. I think for me, the merit of like any of these modal spells is that like if I can look at all the modes and say like, yeah, I could see a time when that would be useful, right? If every mode I can see a time when that mode would be useful, I'm like, oh, okay, great, it's a good card. You know, I like it back to like the 3-drop spell for Prisia, like the 3-drop modal spell for Prisia. I cannot see times for, you know, that we're not already doing what that spell wants to be doing at different times, which is why you haven't seen that spell pop up into different lists. But like,
and then you look at Determination of the Machine Lord, and you're like, wow, this is all broken.
All these modes are good. I'm gonna do that, right? It's the same kind of stuff. So it's cool to see Arla get a similar kind of support, and I kind of can't wait to see what Rezard's might be for that. But speaking of Rezard, let's go ahead and jump. And Ryan, I got to kick you off and bring on your brother. Just kidding, I don't have him on standby.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't have him on standby. But we already know that Aaron's playing Rezard.
I
here.
don't mean to extend this any longer.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to really quickly throw out a disagreement with that judge disagreeing with us. I do think it continuously triggers, and I'm not gonna like push this back into like I'm right, ignore them. I want to push this back into neutral, which is that we're gonna keep looking into it. But
I think that's a good statement.
The judge posted the ruling. It's 906.8a, where a delayed automatic ability is. What?
It's not. It's 906.9. I think they were looking at 906.8, but this is a game status trigger, not a delayed automatic.
Why would it not be delayed? You're waiting until a condition is met, right?
Some automatic objects watch if a specific status is fulfilled during a game. These objects are called status automatic objects, and that's the correct thing. So I think
we will investigate
906.8, and that's not correct.
We will investigate.
Okay. Yeah. Back to neutral. Don't think about
yeah, we don't have a solid answer. Yeah. It's still up for discussion. It will be before this card is released, we will know for sure.
We'll figure it out. Don't listen to either of us.
Yeah. You can't even cancel it. It doesn't
we don't even have a way to cancel it.
Rezard time.
So speaking of Rezard,
beating a dead horse, Rezard.
Yeah. So first off, pretty much the only J ruler of this entire set that has 100% different art from front to back, right? Yeah. Which I think is well. Sorry, I guess like Machina's kind of close, but like Rezard 100% different art from front to back. So Rezard is Stranger 10. He is a human on his front side. 1 green, double black for judgment. Energizes for green and black. His modes are the usual of a Stranger mode of some kind. Judgment for 0, and then the other two are. Each player banishes a resonator or put a resonator from your graveyard into your hand. Now, it doesn't say target, so the interesting thing, the application there is, in previously times we've had modes like this, it's been put target resonator back in your hand, which makes it a little bit less more susceptible to graveyard hate. The cool thing here, I think, naturally, is that it just says put a resonator, so like you don't get to tell your opponent what you're grabbing until it's resolving, which I think is a nice little boost to him. But
which also means that you can mill 2 strangers and then immediately grab one of those strangers back, and they can't interrupt that at all.
Right, exactly. Cool. And so his modes are taking 2 strangers at random and putting them into the graveyard instead of your hand. So like you're saying, you can as soon as it starts resolving, you can take 2 strangers, ship them to the graveyard, and then pick one of those 2 that you wanted and put it back in your hand. So it's like a pseudo way to draw strangers back to draw strangers off the top. But it also means you only need like 5 different Regalia triggers, which based on certain decks, that's not hard to do. To just like see your whole stranger deck, which is half as many as everyone else needs to see. So kind of pretty neat.
No, not Arla.
Yeah, well, also Arla, but like Arla doesn't get to bring them to his hand. So so a little bit more like it's almost kind of like more selective. If you want to invest heavier into the strangers, you almost kind of get more selection with Rezard, because you could see in the past it's always been you get 1, that's what you get, but with Rezard it's 2 and you can pick from between the 2 of them if you're heavily committing to trying to get a stranger into your hand, which I think is a pretty cool, different way to interact with the rune deck. And then I do want to swim over to his J ruler side, and at this point in time, this is the last card we've seen. So he's a 10/10 vampire stranger. On enter, you mill the top 4 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and then you pick a resonator in your graveyard, put it into the field. It becomes a darkness attribute in addition to its other attributes, and becomes a vampire in addition to its other races. So you kind of make this vampire kind of pop into play with Rezard. And then I think that's his god art is 1 black, 1 green. And then what happens is you assign, I'm going to like explain it because like the wording is really weird, but starting at your biggest vampire and working down to your smallest, you assign a target for each one in terms of a J/resonator on your opponent's side of the field. So like you start with the biggest, you assign it a target. You start at the next one, you assign that one a target. They can have the same target, they can be different targets, whatever. And
so then, can I target my opponent's face 5 times?
It doesn't target. It only targets J/Res.
That was a meme. It was a meme.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So no, you can't whirlwind them with this counter. Rezard's not suddenly a burn roller.
Okay.
And then so then once you've done all the targets, then all of your vampires gain +4/+4 until the end of the turn, and deal one-sided combat, like deal their attack as damage to the thing that they've targeted. So we get like a nice little board wipe Goddard.
Yeah, for 2.
Punch.
And some people were hearkening this to like, yeah, but it's kind of like Valentina's. It's not, because it's a board wipe, and you can target multiple things, and it also gives them a big attack. It's kind of like back in the day, where like things that we would try to do with like Final Battle, right? Of like, you want to try to clear your opponent's board, but leave your board up to be able to push through. Rezard's Goddard is essentially that, if you've been able to keep enough vampires alive.
I can't really read it. Does it do J resonators? Like, will he hit something?
It's all vampires you control, so I believe he also hits something.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I really like about this is if you can actually build up a board of like maybe 4 or 5 vampires, you might actually be able to kill one of Pricia's 1-drops, which is pretty cool.
Savage.
Well,
sense, right? Like where you say like if you can build up a board of 4 or 5 vampires, like surely if you have the resources and time to build up a board of 4 or 5 vampires, you could be winning the game with other decks.
Yeah.
I don't really see that. Obviously, we're only looking at the ruler. We're not seeing any support. We haven't even seen the regalia, so no one's writing this ruler off yet. But
sure.
I think this is the worst of the 3 in my opinion.
I think Arla is the worst of the 3, and it wasn't really close for me. I just don't. The fact that, so it kind of does. Like if you have a board, but like I think that the stranger decks are very valuable parts of the regalia. Of the regalia rulers rather, and I think that because Arla just does not have the capability, like Refrain is cheating in strangers in other ways, but Arla's kind of all in on the Goddard with like even the mechanics of the regalia. So, and I don't think it's going to be that reliable to actually like have a Goddard win condition, unless there's like some actual like Exodia, like you have these 4 strangers in play. You win the game.
Like is just playing swarmy dudes, playing a low to the ground. I'm gonna outplay cards. I'm also going to draw a bunch of cards, and my cards are uninteractive because they have flying. Like that just sounds like a pretty good game plan to me. Like I mean, I'm going to go to Hearthstone and be like Zulok, where it's like you just play a bunch of things, but you also just way out card them. That's kind of what I'm thinking for Arla because. Like
I think Perfect Loki's a problem. I think Flame King Shout's a problem. I think there's just too many things that kind of deal with that. Even in terms of, like if you just have a bunch of
board wipes in the format, like what's dealing with this strategy?
So the other thing is, one thing right now is we have Perfect Loki, and we also have Secret Duel in the Moonlight, which I think
once we get Moon, yeah.
I think that card has had. I will give credit to the fact that even going into Vegas, I did not give that card enough credit. I think that card has had a lot of implications. Yeah. We definitely don't have Moon right now, right? Because none of these 3 rulers have Moon. So I imagine that our 3 stones at this point are probably... I can't even blast. No, not Blasting Waves, because that would make sense.
Silence.
It's It's going to be Black Silence, Gusting Skies, and then Hearthscore. So blue, red. So like those are going to be our stones most likely. So we haven't seen Moon yet. But even without Moon, Duel in the Moonlight has been pretty effective. Like it's been shown to be pretty effective. We have Perfect Loki and other things. So I think that there are board wipes in the format that are strong enough to maintain presence. It'll just be a matter of like how, like the one thing that I've said before is like what happens when you're the Arla player and you pull off a Goddard and your opponent's like, oh, double Perfect Loki. Then you can't stop it, and you're like,
maybe they just need one.
And you're just like, whoa, all of my guys, I just lost the game because you're crazy.
This deck is only good if one of 2 states is true, and that is Floki's not good, or you have a good answer to that. And it's not like it's
exactly.
We might see some more graveyard interaction, especially when Arla wants things removed from the grave.
I don't really think Floki's even that good right now, and I don't know if the next set is going to give.
So I agree with you. I don't think it's super good right now, but like Arla could never be good because Perfect Loki exists. Like if Arla was somehow able to beat Prisia and beat Machina and beat Kaguya decks and say, oh look, my deck is actually playable, then Floki's just like, you thought? Like
yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure. I think that 100% before we can say for a fact, like we need to see their support, right? Because the interesting thing here is the other really big interesting implication of AO3 is just a set it's not 2 starters as well. So like
okay.
AO2, 2 of our rulers had a full starter worth of support, as well as the some support that they got in the set itself. This is a 3-way split of a set. So like this means that like how much support is everyone gonna get? What is that support really going to look like? It is a big difference. Like even just like set design wise. And the other thing is we haven't even seen any of Ghost in the Shell yet. So like that'll be having an implication too. I think I would agree in the fact of like I think that Rezard, I think the selection for Strangers of Rezard to me feels better than Arla's front side. Potentially, but I need to see what Rezard's Strangers are before I can like decide that for sure. Because there might definitely be a case where Rezard's Stranger support is like so mediocre to me that Brandon's position of like playing a low to the ground, draw a shit ton of cards concept with Arla just immediately outclasses it, right? I think
I could definitely see like a Gwyber Arla deck existing. My problem is just that I look at Arla's front side, and I just don't see any incentive to play my Regalia on turn 2 or to coin it out on turn 1.
I do, but
right?
well, not Arla. This is being unfair now because like I know
Right.
I'm watching rulers and not the Regalia, but the Regalia is a double Mox for Angels. Like I mean that is just really big. Like the ability for this card to like slam the Regalia, immediately tap it for tempo, and I just drew 2 cards. Like that just seems really good to me. And I recognize we haven't seen Rezard, so now I'm being unfair. But like,
no. My thing is like you're not drawing 2 cards. Like you want to play your ramp card as soon as possible. You want to play your Regalia like on turn 1 or turn 2, so you can start tapping it for mana, then untap with it, and then tap it for more mana. But if you don't have any guys on the board, you're not drawing any card. So your options here are Judge for 0, which you're not doing on turn 1 and 2. You're removing 2 Strangers from the game, which is only okay.
Cast Angel. There you go. So
if that exists, then yes, then absolutely.
Quick Cast Angel.
Quick Cast Angels draw cards.
It doesn't even work. You have to target the Resonator to give it flying. So the Angel has to have Quick Cast and flying. Okay.
I already have flying. Yeah.
Okay. So the Quick Cast Flying Angel that I didn't know existed. Once we have that, and you open the Regalia and that, I'm in there.
There is a 3-drop Quick Cast Angel.
Oh, is it
okay, but
oh my god,
you need it to be a 1 or 2 drop just so you can draw 1 card by playing your Regalia early. Like I have to say, there will probably be more cards that makes it more enticing to remove your Strangers from the game, so there is more value here. But like,
hey guys, you can use this card. You can use this card to play Alice. Not that you could use any of the other Regalia to play Alice. Another Regalia that could be used to play for Alice. Woo!
You're going to be one playing Adam, and if you're playing Adam, then you're not going to be playing this card.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
So I do want to speak to one thing. This has been great conversation. I honestly think this is kind of what the Forcible community has needed, if I'm being perfectly honest, is like seeing these
cards.
spoilers.
Yes,
it's
we
just
need
like
cards.
we need to talk about new cards. It's been a really good breath of fresh air to have all these conversations with people and like being able to really dig into it. And it seems like we're going to be getting new spoilers every day. I will speak to the fact that maybe I shouldn't. I have a very cool project that's going to be posted this weekend that I think people are going to be very excited about. Speaking of new cards, and that's all I'll say about that. But I did want to go around, and I'm going to say real quick, not going into a discussion, but you each get to name a reprint that you think you would want to bring back for Rezard, a reprint for Arla, and a reprint for Refrain.
Easy.
So Derek's super easy. One for each. One for each. So one reprint for each ruler. So I will go first. And I would like to for Rezard, I would like to bring back Arthur, the Dreadlord of Vengeance, the 4-drop that makes.
Oh God!
I want to bring back Arthur, the Dreadlord of Vengeance. For Arla, I obviously want to bring back Celestial Wing Seraph. And if any of the 3 of you don't also say that,
that
then
was
you're wrong.
my exact answer.
So I think we're all saying
angels have ever been relevant in the history of Force Will?
And then for Reflect Refrain for a red-blue card. What red-blue cards have ever been relevant in this game that I would like to see brought back?
Hold on a second.
Steam Explosion. Let's go. Like, let's.
No, there was. What was? Was it the one that produced mana counters?
You know, Steam. There could be the card. Twin-headed dragon could be cool. The one where you could awaken
That's
it.
also an ancient magic
but
card.
it is
like,
an
are they
ancient
really
magic
gonna
card.
reprint
So like,
cards?
Yeah, none of the ancient magics like make sense for reprints, right?
yeah, no. So it'll be. I don't know.
As an ancient magic slash.
Oh, you know what? I will
major,
say
that'd be
this.
interesting
It would
to
be.
have.
It would
Kinda
be.
weird.
Alisaris from Vingolf 3.
It would be absolutely terrifying if they brought it back. But I would love to see Alice's Castling. I'll say that.
Oh God.
Would that be terrifying?
As like a mage art.
As a mage art, with Valentina being able to reanimate giants and then cheat into play other giants, yes, it'd be terrifying. But I would
Imagine if they
still
made
make
it a
it.
sword art, because then this whole thing about Arla being paired with machines and playing twin robots and playing Gwyver, and now Alice is castling the Gwyver into whatever garbage five drops we have
It's
in
a
this
reprint
game.
for R.
Reprint.
It's a
Easy
reprint
peasy.
for R&R, so I would say Alice's Castling.
Yeah.
It's a major. But those are my three.
I think that like Hook was the thing that made castling broken. I don't know if castling itself was insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Maybe.
you're right.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, like it could come back, and it terrifies me because of giants. But I'm still like, it doesn't terrify me enough that I don't want it to happen. Is what I'm saying. Like, if we had something like Hook in the format, I'd be like, absolutely not. You can't bring that card back.
Plus castling into a card in hand, like that seems pretty fair. Like, I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah, I'd have to think about it.
so that's me. Derek, go ahead.
All right, so for Rezard, easy peasy, Persephone, 100%.
Okay, that's not happening because stealth. But okay.
Well, you can remove the stealth. Well, never mind. For Arla,
You can pick the same card as me. It's okay.
all right. Well, it's going to be Celestial Wing Seraph, so yeah, I'm just going to stick with that one because I can't think of another one off the top of my head. And then for Reflect Refrain, so I thought of this. There's like this really cool, like low to the ground, like aggressive deck. So I was thinking I'd kind of like to see Bonsai Attack.
Ooh, that could be dope.
Suddenly that plus 600 on that.
Yeah, suddenly that Reflect Side plus 6 is like real relevant. That'd be dope.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a cool choice. Cool
Oh
choice.
God.
Bonsai
yeah,
Reflect.
so-
Ugh.
Brandon, did you know yours yet?
I don't go Ryan. You got
All right, so for my Arla card, I think I'm gonna differ from you guys here, and actually I'm lying to you. It's Celestial Wing Seraph. For Rezard, I'm thinking realistically, I kind of want the Prowler of Nilfheim. I think it's called.
Oh, the
it's a
one drop that mills 3.
Yeah,
The one drop that mills 3.
yeah. Prowler of Nilfheim, one drop, it mills 3. It's like a 3/3.
Yeah,
which
that could be
I probably
cool.
is good. If we could see Necromancer the Undead Lord, I'd be pretty happy about that. But
Yeah, for
at the
sure.
same time, please don't.
We do have Lancelot and Guinevere. Like,
Jesus. And then
Just
for
bring back
Reflect
Necrolance.
Refrain, we got red and blue cards I can choose from. If I
Yeah.
have to choose a dual colored card, it's Alisaris from Vingolf 3.
Oh,
like
that'd be
they made
the one where
Scheherazade
it's
red
like
blue. So like,
RFG the top card and you can cast it if it dies.
you remove a chant from your graveyard from the game, and
Oh,
then when
sure.
Alisaris dies, you can cast it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I was just choosing a monocolored card, there's better things. Brandon can go while I think of a red or blue card that matters.
Sure.
Oh, no. Okay, so
Mage
for
Arts
Rezard,
too.
I think the easiest answer for me is Riza Melder. Like, I know that's not actually gonna happen. I love Riza Melder, so that's the one I'll pick for them. For Arla, I've been sitting here like trying to ponder any white-green card that like answers Perfect Loki, and I really couldn't come up with one. I think one of my favorite white cards ever. This card wasn't actually good, but like it had a lot of random weird implication. Was Accede the Light? Do you remember what that card?
Oh
does?
yeah, if it dies, you get the same cost card from your deck to the field.
Yeah.
If it left the field, for any reason,
it's not
you could
it's
get
not a great answer to Loki because the new card just dies.
also dies. But
But I really like that card. I'm gonna say that just so I don't have to say Celestial Wing Seraph.
I want to change my answer except
Okay.
from Celestial Wing Seraph.
Okay.
Guardian Angel Raphael.
ooh, the like can't activate stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
because you can't activate their regalia.
Your opponent cannot play the activated abilities of Jailers or Regalia during your turn.
That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, Tsukiyomi
Tsukiyomi
Noble.
Oh, there you go.
We've seen Moon before.
Hell
That could be
yeah.
dope. Yeah, I'd be about that card for sure.
Yep.
All
That'd be
right, for
dope.
my Reflect Refrain card, can I have Down the Drain?
Ooh, yeah. Okay, I'd accept that as a mage art for sure.
Tired of all this Prissy
Oh, that's
nonsense.
fine.
I don't think it
Yeah.
does anything to Prissy.
The
but I
second-
want Down the
I
Drain.
mean, I think that
the beast tokens are green.
yeah.
Yeah.
It stops their Huang Long until they get the 4th Sacred Beast, and then you lose anyway. And then you're like, oh.
Yeah, they're just dead.
For Resort, can I say the Last Days of a Powerless Draconid?
Yes, please. Let's get Last Days back.
Well, what if they give us Gerta and Last Days of the Powerless Dragonoid?
Insane Last Days of a Powerless Draconid would be right now because it both removes the counters from Frisia and it counters the Burning Beast Rush.
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah,
does
of course.
it all.
Let's see. We've seen green red, we've seen green white, we've seen green blue, and we've seen green black. So at this point in time, we're out of green rulers. So this would have
So
to.
it has to be now or never.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to change. I want to change my Resort one to Ruin Story, please. I want Ruin Story.
Ruin the story.
When you
Oh
don't
my
have a
God.
story deck,
Scheherazade's-
get out of here.
Scheherazade's red-blue. You can't have it.
Can't have it. Anyway.
So Reprint
That
Ruin
is
Story
it
and
for tonight. We hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been a lot of fun. We may or may not be back next week. We'll have to see because I am moving and trying to set up the new studio for the new campus.
Me too, actually. So I won't be here.
Yeah, so we're probably going to take next week off, but we will see you all in a couple weeks. And again, like I said, there's going to be a very cool project that I'm going to show off this weekend that I think you're definitely going to want to stick around with. But yeah, until then, again, as always, if you like what we did tonight, you want to support us, click that join button down below. And until next time, this has been myself, Jeremy Franklin, and I've been joined, as always, by Ryan Miles, Brandon Bremont.
I didn't pick my Reflect card, but it's Split Heaven and Earth as a mage art.
Stop. And Derek Muguneza down in the corner there. And we'll see you all next time. So until then, class dismissed. Have a good night, everybody.